At 5:30 a.m. local time, a Russian Bayern-M corvette in the Sea of Azov was preparing to launch 8 cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities. The mission had been quiet so far, but that changed quickly. 7 Ukrainian drones were approaching the ship. The lead drone, called Rebecca, sped up to 400 kilometers per hour as Russian checkpoint guns started firing. Tracer rounds lit up the dawn sky. Each 23mm shell could destroy a drone instantly. The Russian gunner couldn't see the drones but heard their motors. He aimed at the sound, firing bursts toward the noise. Rebecca swerved left, dodging shells that exploded nearby. It reached 432 kilometers per hour, outrunning the gunfire. But the shots alerted Russian forces within 10 kilometers. Messages spread fast on Telegram, and the drones lost the element of surprise. Then, the drone operator's screen went static. Power lines, unseen until the last moment, caused interference. The lead drone, Rebecca, pulled up fast, narrowly avoiding 110,000-volt power lines by just 2 meters. Its instruments went crazy, compass spinning, video feed flickering. For 3 seconds, it flew blind. Then a radio tower appeared. The operator swerved left, missing the tower's wires by inches. 2 more Rebecca drones followed 30 seconds apart, using the chaos to slip through. These were spear drones, built to jam the ship's radar. They had to succeed. 4 Bober drones took a northern route, moving slower at 200 kilometers per hour, but carrying heavier warheads. They were the strike force, meant to hit after the Rebeccas cleared the way. But Russian telegram warnings had reached the next checkpoint. A Repellent 1 jammer was ready, blasting 400 watts of noise to disrupt the drone's control signals. The lead Bober's screen went black, signal lost. The Ukrainians had planned for this. The drone switched to autonomous mode, using preset waypoints, accelerometers, and visual landmarks to navigate through the interference. 3 minutes later, the video feed returned. The Bober was still on course. Ahead, a BTR-82 blocked the highway, its machine gun firing in set patterns. The operator steered the drone into an industrial area, using buildings to block the gunfire. But Russian soldiers, hearing the drone's motors, rushed out and started shooting. The drone stayed low at 10 meters, where the Earth's curvature created radar shadows. A hilltop radar that could see 50 kilometers at higher altitudes could only detect 12 kilometers at ground level. This kept the drone hidden from the BTR. Still, the soldiers' concentrated fire hit its mark. The 3rd Rebecca was shot down, crashing into a parking lot and detonating. 2 Bobers and 2 Rebeccas remained. They couldn't lose more. Then the lead Rebecca crested a ridge, and the operator saw something impossible on the screen. The mission briefing was wrong. In 4 seconds, a critical decision was needed to save the mission or lose all drones. The Russian Pantsir system fired 6 missiles at once. These weren't standard surface-to-air missiles, but Pantsir-M anti-drone interceptors, developed after small drones exposed weaknesses in Russian defenses. Each 12-kilogram missile carried 200 tungsten spheres in a fragmentation warhead, designed to shred small UAVs in a donut-shaped blast. The Pantsir missiles released 200 tungsten spheres, spreading at 1,800 meters per second to form a deadly 10-meter-wide cloud. Easily capable of destroying the drones, the Pantsir operator used a layered tactic, firing missiles at different heights, 50 meters, 30 meters, and 10 meters, forcing the drone to fly through at least one blast zone. The fire control system predicted the drone's path, creating a deadly 3D trap. Each missile's proximity fuse sent out radio pulses, waiting to detect metal to trigger the explosion. But the Rebecca drone's operator knew the Pantsir's weakness: a 1.2-second arming delay to protect the launcher. At 432 kilometers per hour, the drone traveled 144 meters in that time. When the operator saw the missile launch flares, he dove straight toward the Pantsir. The missiles passed overhead, their fuses still inactive, unable to detonate so close to the launcher. By the time they armed, the drone was below them, using the system's safety feature as protection. The operator leveled out at 5 meters and aimed for the Podlet K-1 radar, which guided every Russian launcher within 200 kilometers. The Pantsir's twin 30mm cannons fired, each shooting 5,000 rounds per minute. The gunner used a boxing tactic, firing in rectangular patterns to trap the drone. But the fire control system took 1.5 seconds to calculate. 0.5 seconds to aim, and 1.5 seconds for rounds to travel 2 kilometers, a total of 3.5 seconds. The drone operator changed direction every 2 seconds, making the system's calculations outdated. Rebecca broke through and hit the radar antenna. Its shaped charge detonated, triggering the Monroe effect. The explosion compressed a copper cone into a hypersonic jet, not melting it, but deforming it under extreme pressure. This jet pierced the radar's armor at 7,000 meters per second, like a needle through paper. The jet from the shaped charge ripped through the Podlet K-1 radar's antenna, processing units, operator stations, and out the back wall, turning into copper spray. The second Rebecca drone aimed for the P-18 Spoon Rest early warning radar. The Panzer switched to thermal imaging, but a dawn temperature inversion, cool air under warm air, created thermal shimmer and false heat signatures. The drone's electric motors gave off little heat, about 10 degrees Celsius above the surroundings, blending with the warm sea. Over cooler land, it vanished from the thermal display. The Panzer's imaging system, built for tracking 600 degrees Celsius jet engines, couldn't track the drone's small heat difference. The Panzer gunner, in desperation, fired in a spiral pattern starting at the drone's last known position and spreading outward. This water hose tactic could work against helicopters, which can't turn quickly, but the Rebecca drone could pivot 90 degrees in half a second. The Rebecca struck the P-18 radar dead center, instantly disabling 200 kilometers of radar coverage. With both the Podlet K-1 and P-18 radars destroyed, the Russian corvette 4 kilometers offshore lost its early warning system. Without those radars, the ship's own radar could only see 40 kilometers, leaving less than 2 minutes to react. The corvette, set to launch missiles at Ukraine, was now blind and exposed. The ship's radar picked up the drones at 4 kilometers, but they appeared as flickering contacts, blending with 2-meter sea waves. The drones, flying at 3 meters, produced radar signals similar to the waves, making it nearly impossible to tell them apart. The drone's variable speeds, shifting between 80 and 120 knots, disrupted the Doppler shift used to distinguish moving targets from stationary objects. The corvette's radar, designed to filter out sea spray, mistook the drones for clutter, causing them to vanish from the screen every third sweep as the system labeled them false returns. Despite this, the corvette's AK-630M 2-duet system activated. Its twin 30mm cannons firing 10,000 rounds per minute with a mechanical whine. The fire control computer used Kalman filtering algorithms to predict the drone's paths by combining past positions with current sensor data, like estimating a zigzagging car's next move based on physics and observations. But the drone operators countered this by making random maneuvers every 2 seconds, throwing off the calculations and keeping the drones unpredictable. The AK-630M2 duet system was built to target P-270 Mosquet missiles, 3,000-kilogram weapons flying predictable paths. Against 150-kilogram drones making random maneuvers, it was like swinging a sledgehammer at a hummingbird. The system's computer needed 3.5 seconds to calculate a firing solution, but the drones changed course every 2 seconds, making the math useless. Undeterred by missing every shot, the corvette activated its PK-10 decoy system, launching clouds of chaff. Aluminum strips cut to disrupt targeting radars. Each strip created a radar echo larger than a drone, flooding radar screens within 50 kilometers with hundreds of false targets. This could confuse radar-guided missiles, but the drones, guided by human operators using cameras, were unaffected. The chaff just sparkled in the morning sun, ignored by the operators who kept visual lock on the ship. The corvette's TK-25E electronic countermeasure system kicked in, blasting 200 watts of jamming signals across 20 megahertz to 40 gigahertz. This would normally cut the control link to radio-controlled drones instantly. However, the Ukrainian drones used frequency-hopping spread spectrum, switching between 128 channels per second, in a random pattern only their operators knew. The jamming caused occasional frame drops and pixelation, degrading the video feed from 1080p to 480p, but it never blocked enough channels to break the connection. The feed remained usable. Sensing the approaching threat, the corvette's captain ordered evasive S-turns at maximum speed, but the ship's physics limited its maneuverability against the agile drones. The 949-ton corvette took 15 seconds to turn 30 degrees, while the Rebecca drone could change direction in 50 milliseconds. The drone's operator noticed the ship's predictable turning pattern and timed the approach for the steady moment between turns. At 500 meters, the operator switched to manual control, with the ship's radar mast, 6 meters of critical electronics, filling the screen. The AK-630M2 duet cannons couldn't aim below -5 degrees, and at 200 meters range and 3 meters altitude, the drone was below their firing arc due to trigonometry. Sailors on deck fired PKM machine guns, but they faced a tough challenge. The drone crossed their field of view in 0.8 seconds. Human eyes take 0.2 seconds to focus on a moving target, 0.3 seconds to track it, and 2 seconds to aim. By then, the drone had moved 100 meters, leaving the sailors shooting at after images. The lead Bober drone targeted the ship's mast, which housed all its radars. Its shaped charge was ready to destroy the arrays. The corvette's captain shouted orders for an emergency launch of the caliber missiles, hoping to fire before the ship was disabled. But the launch sequence required 2 minutes for gyroscope alignment, target validation, and missile warm-up. The Bober drones were only 30 seconds away. The first Bober crashed into the ship's mast, instantly knocking out all radar, communication systems, and data links. The corvette could no longer fire its missiles, leaving it defenseless. The second Bober dove toward the port side at a 30-degree angle, its operator targeting the junction between frames 44 and 52, where the missile magazine sat behind 15 millimeters of steel plating. A direct hit could detonate the caliber missiles in their cells, turning the ship into a massive explosion. At 100 meters, the operator made final adjustments, accounting for the ship's 8-knot drift and 3-degree tilt from a hard turn. The shaped charge needed to strike at exactly 90 degrees for maximum penetration. Too shallow, and it would bounce off. Too steep, and it would lose power. The operator had trained for this 500 times in simulations, but real-world conditions were different. Adrenaline shook his hands, sea spray blurred the camera lens, and the weight of knowing a miss could mean continued missile attacks on Ukrainian cities pressed on him. The Bober hit the missile magazine's forward bulkhead precisely. Its shaped charge, a copper cone wrapped in explosives, triggered the Monroe effect. The detonation formed a jet of molten metal traveling at 7,000 meters per second, piercing the steel. The 15-millimeter steel plate was no match for the molten copper jet, which tore through like tissue paper, spraying across stored ammunition and missile components. The second Bober hit the missile handling equipment tied to the vertical launch tubes, damaging hydraulic pumps, fuel lines, and electrical systems that guided the missiles. The explosion wrecked 3 systems at once. Hydraulic fluid at 3,000 psi sprayed onto electrical panels, sparking fires. Missile coolant lines burst, leaking toxic hydrazine derivatives. Most importantly, the warhead safety interlocks were severed, leaving the 8 caliber missiles armed but unusable. The corvette didn't sink, but limped into port 12 hours later. Its superstructure charred, hull breached in multiple spots, and smoke still rising from internal fires. Repairs would take at least 18 months, assuming Russia could source parts despite sanctions. The 8 caliber missiles intended for Ukrainian cities were never launched. Ukrainian operators, working from bunkers 300 kilometers away, had disabled a $500 million warship using drones built with components bought online from Alibaba.